Joe Conlon, Athboy Heritage Forum. The history behind the Samhain Festival in Tlachtga, from my point of view, was research I done in 1997 with John Gilroy for a book. And I learned so much after reading Keating's history and all that was written on Tlachtga and the famous hill and the festival, that I couldn't believe that it wasn't still running, that it was forgotten. I asked a lot of people in Athboy about it, and nobody even knew there was a festival, or there was a Samhain, or there was anything to do with this famous hill of Tlachtga. So 11 years ago I put together a group to go up and celebrate Samhain, and there was only 7 of us, and we dressed up imitation like, and most of the attitude of the people there were, I hope to God nobody sees us, they were mad. And the following year I brought on board some other people, there were 24 of us, and then some of my friends from Kells, from the Druid Circle, Adge and Alec McAllister, Ella Kavanagh and Annette Peer. I asked them to come on board, and they did. And the year after, Gemma and her friends, Gavin and Annette, and came on board, and ever since it's gone from strength to strength to strength to, I think, roughly about 650 people this year. Apart from Samhain, the hill was described by McAllister in 1912 as the hub of civilization. After the death of Brian Boru at the Battle of the Boyne in 1014, all the kings of Ireland, or the princes of Ireland, which were kings in their own right, were vying for the high kingship of Ireland. And the battles went on for best part of 20 years. And Lawrence O'Toole sent out his agents, and he says, find the most sacred part of Ireland. And they came back with Tlachtga, Hill of Ward. So he decided to have a senate in 1167. And there was 25,000 people attended that. And 41 years later, 2 of the men, there was young men at that senate, was at the signing of the Magna Carta in England. So that has tremendous significance with world and European history. As well as that, when the Romans were in Britain, the only people they feared were the Irish Druids from Tlachtga that was in Cornwall. That was the only people feared by the Romans. The decline in the Samhain ceremony would have started taking place around the 15th century. Then we had Cromwellian soldiers spent 4 years camped on Tlachtga, and that would have broke the spirit of Tlachtga, because anything soiled by Cromwell would not be a place to visit or go to. It would have very black overtones for Irish people. So I think after that it was looked more as to be shunned rather than be celebrated.
So why is Samhain important, and why do we celebrate Samhain? Well, Samhain is the traditional Celtic New Year. The Celts believed that that darkness gave birth to light, so that the New Year was always celebrated as you moved to the darkest point of the year. And on Samhain night, the sacred fire was lit at Tlachtga, and people would come on pilgrimage from all over the country to take embers from the sacred fire and to bring them back to their villages, to their settlements. On that night, all of the settlement fires would have been put out and the world would have been plunged into darkness. So you can imagine people waiting for the people to return from the hill, carrying the sacred embers to reignite their fires. This was the time that the veil between the worlds was at the thinnest, when the spirits of the dead walked abroad, when the fairies and the demons and everything came out to play. And this was a world of darkness. It was also the time when the local shamans or witch doctors or cunning folk would commune with the spirits of the dead in order to bring back revelations to their villages, words of wisdom and knowledge that they would gain from the spirits of the ancestors to bring back in order to rejuvenate the village. Year.
For they believed that before the light always came the darkness. They believed that this time that the veil between the worlds was at its thinnest, and that the spirits of the dead would rise out of the spirit world and walk amongst them. It was the time when the shamans or the witch doctors would commune with the dead in order to bring back knowledge and wisdom to the tribes and to the people for the forthcoming year. The fairies walked abroad at Samhain too, and if you should so set foot into a fairy mist on Samhain, be very, very careful, for you do not know when you might return to your home. To Tlachtga they came to light the sacred fire, the most sacred fire
The name
in all the
Tlachtga
land.
actually means earth spear, because Tlachtga herself was a goddess of lightning bolts. Now, we believe that she's pre-Celtic, that she goes maybe back as far as the Firbolg, and that she actually has strong connections to the Calia, who is a goddess of the earth itself. So she has a number of different aspects, and also she has her well, so she's a multifaceted goddess. But her story itself is quite an interesting one, because what it actually tells us is how the form of worship changed over a period of time. Now, the most feared of all of the druids in Ireland was the one-eyed druid Mag Rua, and Mag Rua had a fair daughter named Tlachtga. Now, Mag Rua had an insatiable thirst for power, and so he travelled all the ends of the country with Tlachtga, collecting wisdom and knowledge from all of the magical peoples of the countryside. And together they built the Roth Ramach, which is a great spinning wheel of fire that used to carry them across the sky. And once they had exhausted all of the people of Ireland and felt that they could no longer take any more knowledge from them, he decided to travel.
It is said any who looked upon it would be instantly blinded. Any who heard it would be struck deaf, and any who touched it would fall down dead. To the ends of Ireland they travelled, seeking out knowledge in an attempt to quench Mag Rua's insatiable thirst. But no, he was never satisfied.
Never!
Mag Rua had heard tell of a sorcerer in Italy by the name of Simon the Magus. And in him, Mag Rua believed he had found a kindred spirit, someone with as much of an unquenchable thirst for power as he had. It is said that Simon the Magus had learned the arts of healing from Jesus Christ himself,
where he met a magus called Simon, who it is said learned the arts of healing from Jesus Christ himself, but had placed himself above Jesus Christ and was therefore known as the first heretic. It's also said that Simon Magus had learned the art of flight from the birds and could communicate with them. So Mag Rua and he were kindred spirits, to say the least, but they were also a little bit lazy, and they decided to send Tlachtga on a worldwide mission to bring back all of the knowledge and all of the wisdom from all of the magical peoples of the world to them, so that they might be the most powerful men in the world. And so Tlachtga did fly to all the four corners
Simon
of the
Magus
earth,
and Mag Rua
bringing
got to
all of
talking, and they thought, we would like more knowledge, we would like more wisdom, but we're too bloody lazy to go and get it for ourselves. So we'll send Tlachtga to the ends of the earth in order to find all of the wisdom and send her to all of the magical peoples of the world to bring it back to us. When she returned to Italy, and willingly handed over all of the wisdom that she had found on her travels, Mag Rua and Simon Magus looked upon her and realised that she was the most powerful, and she was the wisest among them, and their jealousy knew no end. And so it was that Magrua and Simon Magus handed Tlachtga over to the 3 sons of Simon Magus. And they took her, and they defiled her.
And 9 months later, Tlachtga crawled back to the hill of Ward, to Tlachtga. And there she gave birth to 3 sons. And in her last dying breaths, because the childbirth was so dreadful, she cried out the names of her sons, Durub, Cuma and Muach, whose names actually mean Leinster, Connacht and Munster. And she said that as long as we remembered the names of her son, then no foe could come and take the sovereignty of Ireland. So she is a sacrificial goddess. What the story is really telling us is that initially we had the worship of Tlachtga. She's an elemental goddess. She's an earth goddess and goddess of lightning bolts. Then we have Magrua come along with his one eye in the flaming across the sky, which is the movement into the worship of the sun and the sun god. And then we have Simon Magus, who is a biblical character, which takes the other side, the patriarchal side, and overthrows all of that again. So there we bring the biblical side in and the Christianity side in. So it's actually showing us a progression of how people worshipped over a long period.
Can we start singing the Tlachtga? Okay. Tlachtga, lady goddess fair, come unto us on frosted air. Light our first bright pale moonlight, light our fires on Samhain night.
I'm Tlachtga well. I was here from the beginning of time, and I'll be here until the end of time. I give you a blessing for the coming year, that your lives shall be filled with abundance, joy, happiness, and most of all love. Blessings to all here.
Co.Meath.
On your way to the hill.
Okay, we have a second one to teach you now. Get into the spirit of it, you'll be fine. Are you ready? Yes. Come on, a bit more enthusiasm. Are you ready? Yes. That's it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hoof and horn, all that dies shall be reborn. Fire and rain, all that dies shall live again. Lovely. Now comes the really interesting part. When we split you in half, and we get one half singing the Tlachtga chant, and we get the other half singing the hoof. Yes, that's what I like to hear. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Tlachtga, lady goddess fair, come to us on frosted raise your voice. It's important that those you have lost are remembered here tonight. I would like to remember Catherine McGowan. Anyone at all?
Doreen Valiente. Roy Bailey. Stuart Farah. Tom Kieran.
Lawrence Kieran.
Amy Winehouse.
Brian Shaw.
Robert Hodgson.
David Cassidy.
Ellen McPherson.
Margaret Little.
Angela Donlan. Tommy Gaffney.
Alan Hopkins. Isaac Bernowitz.